instead of kicking it down the road, we establish a group like we have put together for this particular exercise that actually takes it on board to look specifically at that area, because nobody knows. Brian's done a lot of work on trying to reshape it and redesign it, but perhaps when we've done this job, then we concentrate then on the...
Would that same group be happy to do the same?
Yeah.
We'll have a look at it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, we've spent 2 days on this this week with our outing as well, and it does take time, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I think it's been a worthwhile exercise, and I think everybody on the council would support your.
If you have got some spare time, I suggest you go to Spaxton and have a look at it.
Where's Spaxton? Is that you?
Don't go the way Colin went yesterday.
I'm sorry.
It's just beyond Cannington.
Did you go by this?
If you go the wrong way, this side. This side. We went
Turley Reservoir.
We went all
Go
over.
past the fair.
Yeah, go past Turley Reservoir. That way.
On the right hand side.
And there you'll see the abode of man.
Stop before you come to
Have we any further updates on pitching our tents?
Can I just clarify one thing? These cycle racks, you're happy for me to send a cheque to the company that Brian, Central Source Limited, and get the cycle racks delivered to Brian? You're happy to do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
all in favour of that.
Okay, that's fine.
And that was not how much?
£77.76.
How many
Full.
other
You couldn't fit any more.
No.
Right, pitching the tent, Colin.
I'll be very brief. We've now done what they call a SWOT analysis on all the churches. So what I'm going to do is write a report, which I hope I can put in the September issue of the BKN, but I will give it to the parish council to agree before, because I just feel that it's not our decision. I just should advise the residents of Brent Knoll what is happening and how it is happening, and that's all.
Crooked Lane project. Is it? I'm not sure there's anything.
No, I'm sure there was. I put it on there because I wasn't quite sure whether there was anything else.
Well, there is a slight development, and I haven't involved the parish council. I've involved myself, but it may well be that it comes up. But I was contacted by Matthew Wall as to see whether we would become involved in making a grant application to the Bath, or I forget now, the Royal Bath and West Showground, or something like that have funds for, it's called Hills to Levels project. And what it is providing grants to repair and renew droves that farmers use and people like Axe Group Drainage use in order to gain access into the country to carry out drainage work and also their farming activities. And I met with Matthew Ward and a guy called Lauren Eldred, who's coordinating the grants, and I met with the two landowners, I've forgotten their name. No, Dibble, he wasn't there, but then Clive Kidner. Met with them, we walked the drove, Broadbrent Drove and Crooked Lane, and Matthew's given me a specification and a map and a schedule of works which I have sent out to Tuckers, Spratts and Popes in the hope that I can get 3 quotes together. I haven't done it under the name of Brent Knoll Parish Council, I've done it under my own name at the moment. But it's to upgrade the paths, make it more user-friendly, which will again make it suitable for members of the public to use. So that's what I've done, but whether we get involved or not, I don't know.
Marco?
I thought Mr Phillips was going to get involved with something to do with that area.
This is a bigger project than Pete Phillips he'd probably be interested in it, but I don't think he would be interested at this moment in time.
Right.
Because Matthew's put me in touch with the people that he's confident could do the work.
Pete Phillips has moved away.
Yeah, well,
No, they're not there, he's not there
I didn't
anymore.
really want to comment on that. Yeah. That was my way of commenting.
Delete that bit.
So nothing to minute there.
No, very delicate.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Colin, and if you're happy to continue with that,
Yeah.
if you're happy to continue in that way.
Yes, I'll report back where I am, but
That's fine, thank you.
I mean, it could help us anyway.
Affordable housing consultation and associated matters. Where do we stand? We were expecting a great rush of angry people tonight. You can see we were swamped. Thank God for the football. Mr 500 words a second has sort of backed down on his comments to a certain extent, I have to say. But I still feel that there was a lot of misunderstanding, and there is still a lot of misunderstanding within the village over what it all is about. Some people are still under the impression that we're at planning stage, not at consultation stage, even though it says consultation. Peter's already mentioned, is it social housing, is it affordable housing, what does it all really mean? We had the question this afternoon, if people have these, are they going to be for rent, are they going to be for reduced cost, is it going to be part mortgage and part rent and all these sort of things? And our answer is, nobody knows at this stage because it hasn't been resolved. But there needs to be a common message going out, I think, which is what Peter was trying to say earlier. In terms of the two meetings, it's like chalk and cheese, wasn't it, for those who went to both? And the one that was done by the last one was just professional, and I think there was only one angry voter, which Duncan took outside to deal with. So there was no issues of people getting upset at the time, compared with the sort of issues that happened at the ad hoc one. I thought it went very well. Now, as far as I know, the next stage is that they will be looking at any comments that they have received and will be reporting to us and hopefully coming to our September meeting.
Sorry, you finished?
Yeah.
A lot of the comments I heard, negative ones, were to do with traffic, but you had a comment on that, didn't you?
Well, I had several people say to me, oh, look at all the extra traffic, and I said, look, 20 houses, maximum of 40 cars, 40 additional cars. When I looked at the SID data for Brent Street, the number of vehicle movements in one direction, only in one direction per day, was over 1,500. And 40 and 1,500 is, statistically quite insignificant. And if you actually did the analysis properly, I suspect we're going to get much more traffic associated with the school runs, both in the morning and the afternoon, because of the number of people that the school attracts.
I think also it should be impressed upon people that it was shown that there was a need for affordable housing here, and it is not for the low life, as some people think it is going to be.
You can't say
I can say it here.
yes, but we can't put that in the Brent Knoll.
No, I just put it on television. I felt very angry about a comment, one of the comments I was reported to me, that somebody said, oh, can't you send these people to Highbridge?
Yeah.
And I object to that because one of my daughters lives in Highbridge.
Yeah.
That's sort of blinkered Sunreader attitude.
Yeah, and I think it was unfortunate there was a lot of people making comments. I consider myself a newbie, and I had one particular person say to me, and they've only been in the village 3 months longer than me, and I just think, how dare you? You know, I would be coming up with comments like that, and it was horrendous to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, that's only one, and the rest were, you know, okay, I think.
Could I make a suggestion that we put an article in the Brent Knoll News explaining what our affordable housing is? So we would talk about P4 and all that. So that people totally and utterly understand we're in a rural
The
area.
problem,
And it is.
the problem we have, of course, is the timings now, because
Of
Brent Knoll
course.
News is not going to
Of
come out until
course.
September. Plus, when I was contacted by somebody that said I could go to the meeting, how did it go? And I just wrote back and said it was a very professionally organised meeting, therefore it went very well. If you wish to make comments, go to this particular link, and on that link, it does actually make reference that Sedgemoor are going to approach us to do a further survey. Were you aware of that, Bob? So, in other words, we did the survey, what, 2.5, well, it must be over 2.5, 3 years ago. But there's going to be a follow-up survey, which I presume we go through BKN, and that possibly would be the time to do something in Brent Knoll News, in the BKN, to say, the reason for this is because there are people in the village that either have got family that wants to stay in the village and they can't afford to buy.
No.
And they're fed up with their sons living in tents in their gardens.
And also, do they know that that one at the end there was unofficial?
A lot of people said that to me
Wasn't it?
actually, about that
A
one.
lot of people said to me, oh, why are they putting the affordable housing not all in one part, they're actually interspersing it with the houses that are going to be built. And I said, hang on a minute, that was just an indication of what could happen. This is not a planning document. They were under the impression this is a fait accompli.
I think people don't actually think it through. I think they react very quickly on the emotional side of it, but there was a lot of misunderstanding, and I think that unofficial consultation which went on at the bottom,
it wasn't held,
one, it really wound people up.
And it wasn't helped because they kept diverting everybody by saying, oh, by the way, there is a potential for $250,000 to be donated to the highways so that they can improve the junction. And everybody was then focusing on that more than on the other aspects. Is there anything else we need to talk about it? Because to be honest, at the moment, until we get the report back from Duncan and Esther, we can't really progress it any further.
Bob was saying this, I mean, in terms of if and when a site does come forward, they would tend to look to pepper pot the affordable housing throughout. Generally, they won't encourage, it's not encouraged now to create an enclave of affordable housing and the open market separate. And if you go around some of the sites that have been done, they're now designed in such a way that as you go through an estate, you will look at both affordable housing and open market housing, and you will not know the difference between the two. They are not built in any different way. So, I mean, in that sense, I think, as you say, there does need to be some explanation. I think when the next survey goes around, and when the last one came around, there was a bit of a blurb that came around with it explaining the situation. As you were saying, 3 years ago, a lot of people won't have remembered that. And also, next time around, obviously, the fact that we're now talking about it might actually be happening. It may get a greater response from those people who do have a need, because they'll think there's actually a chance that something could happen. So with a bill like that, we'll bring things forward. As you say, there were a number of issues raised about whether or not the school could cope, the sewers could cope, the highways could cope. All of those things will need to be looked at on any site that comes forward, and we'll sort of see the feedback that we get. One thing I was going to ask Owen is, have we now got the link for to the Sedgemoor pages on the Brent Knoll website? Because last time I looked on there, it still hadn't gone up.
Dave had a bit of problem with a couple of links after you put on there actually, and the links seem to come up incorrectly. So when I tried to link onto something, it didn't seem to work. But I'll have another word with him.
Because again, it'll make it easier for people if they don't have to remember the Sedgemoor website.
Because
You just go through the village one and get straight.
And that's to send me the link anyway. So
well, the plans are now up there and the forms are on there. People can send back as well. So let's try and get.
And the summary of the process and everything, so it's all on that page, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Bus provision and to agree further action. Well, I think everybody's aware that the sort of letters we've had back so far are as we would have expected, and the chances of us getting a bus service per se is going to be pretty damn slim, if at all. I spoke with not Esther, who did I speak with this afternoon? Kim. I spoke with Kim this afternoon, and she says there are 4 potential options that we could consider, and as a parish council I believe we should be thinking about catalysing these rather than doing them per se. And these vary from setting up a car scheme, making sure people are aware of the Slinky service, the Sedgemoor community transport, and obviously the Mendip community transport. Now, other than the Slinky, there will be a cost involved to the individuals for Sedgemoor and car scheme. Any involvement of Mendip, there will be a cost to the parish council, and if you're drawing your old age pension, I should say, and they've got a bus pass, Slinky is free. Now, what he did say is that clearly there is an issue with Lymsham, there's an issue with East Brent, and whether we should be considering perhaps putting some scheme together covering the 3 parishes. Because she acts as a village agent for all 3, and she's happy to sort of act as our catalyst, I think is the word. But clearly, if we wanted to go down the route of our own car scheme, it's then getting somebody that's going to act as an organiser and then getting the necessary volunteers. But it's something whether council would wish us to, how we would like to play this. Any thoughts, views? Because I think it's going to get worse as people get older.
We, if you remember last year or something, we did a survey in the BKN. We sent out a flyer. We told them what the problems were, and we introduced Mendip community transport. And I got, of the 500 or so we sent out, 5 back. And I sent those to Mendip. I'd like to know what they've done with them, because they should have, I think, contacted the people concerned. But Bob did say earlier, correct if I'm wrong, Bob, that there was going to be a higher level meeting with Healy, Sunset, etc., and the 3 parish councils. Is that right?
Yeah, I think at the moment it's been mainly focused on potentially us and East Brent, because currently Lymsham have still got a bus service, so they're all right, because the one that's been rerouted is going through Lymsham. So I know there are some people from Brent Knoll who are actually getting a lift out to Lymsham and then catching the bus from there. But I think yes, I mean it would be worth us, I think, making an approach to James again and saying, is there any news in terms of getting that meeting organised, and see if there is some way that between us we can all put pressure on the bus companies.
I'm also thinking about not just for people to get on a bus to go from Brent Knoll to Western Supermare or Burnham to do the shopping, but consider people having to travel to further afield for medical reasons. And this is where perhaps the car scheme, Sedgemoor community transport would be of benefit to such people, and it's something perhaps we ought to perhaps identify, or what Kim was suggesting is whether there is one of her fellow village agents has coordinated something similar in other parts of Somerset, and whether he could coordinate a meeting in the village, rather like we did with the CPR meeting, to get people together and just explain what it's all about, and then see whether we can start to spread the message through. With all respect to Colin, I know that we sent out those questionnaires, but I don't like filling in questionnaires, and that's the other issue, is perhaps it's an alternative approach. I'm open to suggestions, but I think it would be worth pursuing if we can, at no cost, but I think it's something we as the council should catalyse and not do. Peter?
It's a bit of a problem because I can't get my head around the fact that people will get in their car now and drive away from the village. They get on a bus to use their car pass to go into Burnham. And you've got, you know, we're talking about people that need a bus, but there's an awful lot of people that don't need a bus. All they want is a free ride because they got bus passes. Are genuine people in the village that have got no transport and they need to get about, but there are others that are...
Yeah.
And it's that latter case is only potentially going to get worse as the age goes higher, the age group in the village goes higher, because they're going to have a need to get to Taunton or Bristol or wherever hospital they've got to go to. And
Following these, this is on about...
no, they're going to have a bike rack fitted on the ambulance and so on, so you'll set it back out there.
In Portishead they do have, because there's a predominant factor of older people and it's attached to the doctor's surgery and it's called Portishead Porters. So if you've got somebody that needs to go to a hospital appointment and they haven't got family or they don't drive or the buses don't go at a convenient time, and it is volunteers, and you are told how much that's going to be, so it's a contribution to the wear and tear of the car and the petrol and all the rest of it. They are people that have to have CRBs because they're with vulnerable people. We've used this service and they are arranged to come and pick up the person, take them to the hospital, wait for an hour and then bring them back home. And it is a really well used service. And I think as a village ourselves, we have a population of older people, and that if going to hospital appointments and medical appointments, it's going to be difficult to get there, and for children to actually take a day off of work to go and do that. I think with the buses, we could approach the supermarkets because some of them do free buses. Yes, Tesco.
Tesco's will come and say, we could say we've got a need in the village, and if we could have a slot on a Wednesday and advertise that just once a week, because how often, or even once a fortnight, how often do people shop these days? It's not daily as it used to be, is it? You do go and do a bigger shop.
Mind you, they could always turn around and say, well, you could do it online because everybody's got a computer, haven't they? But they missed the point that most people of a certain age want just to be IT friendly.
No. Well, as a community, that...
What is the position of county now on this? Because these are elderly people, that can't, or people with a bus pass, that can't get anywhere. Well, what is the point of giving them a bus pass? It's a kind of duty of care, really, and it's just been completely, really ignored. And I think they should be held much more accountable than they appear to be.
At the moment, the state of play was that in effect, the subsidised bus that used to come through the village was the Brent Street one, which got cut last year. The route that was then continuing was Weber bus, which wasn't subsidised at all by county. That was a commercial route. And unfortunately, with the Weber going to receivership or then closing down, that has gone. Now, at the moment, county, as I understand it, will only put it in where there is no service, and what they're trying to argue at the moment is that parts are covered. So in effect, we've got a bus service. It just skirts around our village at the moment, so it's covering Lewisham, but it misses out the East Brent and Brent Knoll bit. So county, I think we can try and put some pressure on.
I think so.
But at the moment, we need. That's where I think it would be useful getting Heapy involved and having that sort of meeting, because he can put it on from above as well. And then try and raise it in that way.
So how can we push that forward?
I was initially, we've had the letter from James, so if we write back to him saying we understand that there's the possibility of this meeting to go ahead, we would very much like to see that with East Brent, because they're looking at options as well, because they're in as much of a hole as we are.
I mean, is it something that council would be happy if Kim was to explore further on our behalf? And then come to us at our September meeting with some further proposals. Because if we want to have some backup proposals.
No, I think... Have we written to our county councillor, Mr Denby?
I believe he was copied in on the correspondence.
And I replied from him, actually surprising. Yes, I did get a reply from him.
You did? What's he doing?
He says took it up with Tom Main, which he did. And I had a letter back from Tom Main, who told us
Yes, it's on there.
basically, get in touch with Mendip Community Transport. That's just gone like full circle, really.
The thing is,
But if we go to Mendip Community Transport, we as the Parish Council would have to pay a contribution for a number of journeys per year, and that would have to be reviewed on an annual basis. And that could have significant potential cost, I should say.
Well, basically, Brent had agreed with Mendip Community Transport they could afford no more than £2,500 per annum throughout their precepts. And Mendip Community Transport said you don't get a lot of transport for £2,500.
I was going to say.
So therefore, you can forget that sort of level of finance. We're talking probably several times that to get a really decent service.
But it's still the county that are not taking responsibility, and this is what we're all talking about.
Owen and I were talking about something.
They should be doing something, not doing anything.
I'm sure it was Owen, or was it Bob? I can't remember who I'm talking to. Has the county got a duty of responsibility to provide a bus service?
Not to every village, no.
Not to every village,
No. Because there are a number of parishes that already have not had bus services in the way that we were fortunate enough to. The problem also that is strange, normally those tend to be more remote villages, and we're quite unusual in the sense that we are actually quite close to Burnham, and it's not that much out of the way. You'd have thought we'd be able to negotiate something, but it is just we need to put that pressure on.
Colin?
I think so.
I think three things have come out of this. One, Bob's initiative at high level. I think Andrea's suggestion of contact with the local
Supermarket.
well, yes, the supermarket that's the fourth. Supermarket is another one. Someone needs to take that up. I think the doctor provision, both at East Brent and possibly down there, is a useful contact to see if anybody from the village needs help. But also, I think Kim, the village agent, will know people who require transport, and I think we need to see if we can get. I mean, I personally wouldn't object to taking someone to hospital because I think it's a worthwhile project. So I think we should look at probably come September again, when people are back from holiday, start the process of trying to, perhaps somebody could take on an initiative to develop this self-help.
Yeah, because one of the things that was mentioned, or I mentioned to Kim in our discussion, it's not just the patient having to get to the hospital. It could be that you've got a husband in hospital and the wife can't drive. So and evidently the car scheme and the Sedgemoor Community Transport will cater for that sort of scenario.
Can we get in touch with the authorities about this? Because I'm sure there'll be some ruling that somebody will be dragged off to some centre to be told how to drive a car with a patient in it. Right. So it's all in there.
This is the car scheme toolkit produced, and basically the key thing would be you need to have somebody to coordinate the whole thing, a number of volunteers, and obviously the people doing the driving would have to have the add-ons on their insurance. In other words, you have to notify your insurance company that you're doing this, and there's a standard clause that they can provide.
You haven't got to be screamed to say you're a danger to the public.
Well, you may be.
You do a sticker on your window for that.
Don't come into this.
Yes, on the subject of volunteers, actually, there was actually somebody in this village who was associated with the Catholic Church in Weston-super-Mare, and he's involved via the Catholic Church, and he takes people to and from hospitals as a volunteer. So the church, well, it depends on how active the church is.
For several years during my retirement, I used to drive for the Red Cross. That was taking people to hospital. I'm sure the system still operates.
They always used to have kind of hospital, people in hospital transport, didn't they?
Yeah.
I used to have in Birmingham.
It's just making people
You
aware
need
of
to
it.
contact the Red Cross.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be very good.
it's still going.
Yep, but I think what Colin has said is absolutely right, and that's so by our September meeting we can put some thoughts. And I'll speak to Kim and ask her to get some thoughts, and perhaps she can come and address us as well in September. Thank you.
Good job.
SID update and Station Road proposal. SID, I haven't had any data from Richard for whatever reason, so we can't progress it. But you may have you seen the latest BKM?
No.
There was a response to my letter of the previous month from somebody that's saying, basically, this has been a well-known thing for years. We all know who the people are. It doesn't matter how many SIDs there are in the village, it won't stop it. We need sleeping policemen, or worse, does it mean to have a grandchild or a child injured or worse killed before action is taken? And that's the issue that I think we're having to face. There is a speeding problem, we've identified it. I'd like to have gotten more data to support what we found. My thoughts were I would like to speak to our local PC, if the council's happy to talk it through to see whether we can get information from them, to say, look, we've got a problem, what else can we do?
I mean, Richard, I saw Richard this afternoon, actually popped in and had a chat with him, you know, about some of these issues, and a couple of things he said to me was that we've got a potential problem with our SID anyway, because suffering from condensation. And apparently East Brent had similar problems with theirs, so they had to go back to Germany twice to be recalibrated or whatever, and he fears that we might have to do the same with ours as the autumn progresses. He has said about the data, just a bit that Richard was raising, he's prepared to give us software, anybody can have a software on the council, and they can actually get the data themselves. But you know, I did say to him, the problem is that software, is that going to be loadable on everybody? You know, if everybody's going to start taking data, it's not really the answer. Somebody needs to take the data independently. And the other thing you mentioned was the Station Road element. Somebody asked about Station Road, whether we should have a SID located there. And Richard's view is that the traffic doesn't move very fast on Station Road because it was parked cars there.
It's hammered.
To some extent, wouldn't that be the point of putting the SID there?
Well,
because then we'll get the actual data rather than what we think happens.
There is a perception by somebody in Station Road that people do speed at certain times, irrespective of...
Not those mothers again, is it?
Possibly, I don't know. But you're absolutely right, Bob, and we come back to this fundamental question, and I don't understand why he's so reluctant not to just do what he did last time after some persuasion from Owen, to send me the data. I'm quite happy to analyse it, but you've then got to have a Bluetooth, you've then got to go out to the machine, or you bring them, I don't know how it works, and he knows all this sort of thing. So, and I have to say, for the last 2 times I've seen it, it's not working, I don't think, at the moment. But anyway.
I've suggested to him that maybe he'd like to come on and talk to the parish council again, just to get us fully conversant with all this stuff, because there seems to be a lot of issues there. Not least of which because we might end up without one for a period when we go back to Germany.
So 2 things. Can I have is it okay, you're happy with me to talk to the police, either the PCSO or Mr Wills,
Yeah.
see whether he gives us some support? And equally, can we suggest that Richard attends? It's going to be a busy meeting next September, isn't it? But the sooner we get it, the
We
better.
can ask him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that.
Please.
I was thinking possibly, if we've got the meeting in July, maybe we get Richard onto that to make the meeting a little bit more worthwhile even.
Football's over by then, Brian, so it's all right.
I know what the score is.
Portugal 10.
I'm
So-
worried about my bike. I've got no license.
Do you need to go early?
I can't even walk. Can I? Have you seen me?
Difficult.
Very.
So,
Can we raise the issue about Station Road again?
Sorry?
Can we raise the issue about Station Road? Because I do think it...
No, we've had a request from a resident,
Mm.
and obviously they are concerned, therefore I can't see why we can't have a site. personally.
So, would you like me to invite Richard to the 27th meeting?
If you can, please.
Would that be, or would you prefer it in September, the September meeting? Up to you.
No. Our agendas seem to be getting quite full, like tonight. So July seems
Quite sensible.
much harder.
Clear over.
Yeah, that's
I'll ask
it.
Richard if he's around for that meeting.
Handyman. Now, do we need to talk about that further, or do we want to send that
I
down?
propose we remove it from the agenda
Yeah.
until such times as when we consider there is an issue that we need one, because what we're doing at the moment, we're trying to find an excuse for it. And an handyman.
Right, okay, accept that.
It's an obligation we don't need.
John.
Jubilee Stone, we were asked, I was asked to go back to Wells Cathedral, which I did with Colin and Richard. We saw the director who had given us the quotes which he gave us were in just in excess of £1,200 without VAT added on, to look at the three options which we had, which were to engrave the existing Jubilee stone with the last, in fact, two Jubilee bonfires, which were in 2002 and 2012, which have not been done. Also to consider the attachment of a suitable stone with a suitable engraving for the Queen's bonfire at the bottom of the Jubilee stone, and thirdly the possibility of having a boulder put at the base of the flagpole, again suitably engraved with the Queen's 90th birthday. We talked about it. I think the three of us were happy with the ideas which Wells Cathedral had on both the Jubilee, the boulder, and for the stone. The only one extra thing was that there were two entries on the Jubilee stone to make the 2002-2012. The quote was over £1,200, and they would say, if should we wish to proceed, they will do the whole lot within that cost. So it's a question of what we wish to do. Record the Jubilee bonfires and record the Queen's 90th birthday.
Any thoughts?
We have had a letter back from Ian Clement at National Trust now saying he apologises for the time it's taken to get back to us. Delighted to say that our archaeologist has now replied saying he has no objection to your proposal, and perhaps you'll be kind enough to come back to me in due course with exactly what you would like to get engraved on the stone and when and how you intend to carry out the work. So we've got permission from National Trust effectively.
Saying about there's a possibility of £800 in the Charities Trust.
600
Yeah, that's half the cost.
Mm.
We've got the money.
Mm.
So do we want to have a show of hands on those in favour of doing the work, please?
Well, I can't put my hand up.
I
What?
think we should do the Jubilee stone.
Should we do the whole lot?
Oh, yes, I see why not. I mean, what are we going to do if we don't?
Because it will cost, probably cost as much to do one as it do the whole lot. So all those in favour of doing it, please? Right, that's majority.
No, did you
Do you abstaining or don't want to?
Abstain.
Abstain. Andrea was abstaining. Did you put your hand up? I couldn't see.
No, we didn't.
Are you objecting?
I'm objecting.
You're objecting.
One abstention.
One abstention and one objection. That's fine. Right, moving on quickly. So, John, do you with you all the through to progress it now, as we can go?
Well, I mean, shall I progress it with the with Wells Cathedral?
Please.
Right.
The sooner we get it done, the better, because you did say
Okay.
end of August, didn't you?
Yes, it did, yeah. Right.
Green waste and associated matter for consideration. I don't know why that's on the agenda. Peter does,
I
obviously.
phoned up last, put it on the agenda, I had a communication from a parishioner saying, why is it that we pay a great deal of money to the council for us to send our green waste off to them for them to compost, and they're sending out letters saying that you should do that and consider the well-being of the world, and yet they insist on coming along and tearing up the grass and leaving it everywhere and flailing the hedges. I was going to bring up the fact about the ragwort, but apparently I thought that was a notifiable weed, but it isn't.
Isn't it anymore?
Nope, it wasn't ever.
Oh,
It was an addition to the Weeds Act 1959. They put the Ragwort Act in 2003. And it's not notifiable, but if it becomes a problem, then you have to go to your council and they'll convene a council and they'll send a letter to the landowner. It is poisonous, but it's not a notifiable weed. It's not like the knotweed.
So is it an issue that we as a parish council can do anything about?
Well, what I'm saying is, could we as a council, our proposal is we as a council write to counties saying that they will be practising what they're preaching, and as much, because they should be picking up their waste, their green waste, and composting it, because they'll come along and cut a verge, that will go down into the gutter, it will go along and block up the drains.
Yes, I have a point.
I think the issue would be, if we're going to do that, have we got evidence to support the claim?
Well, all we have to do is open your eyes if you wander around the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah, but you know, we need to be able to give them chat from first to say, you know, we noticed on this day this was happening, and this is the waste was produced.
No,
And
it's happening, yeah. Oh, no, no. This is how I wend my merry way around the world.
any other thoughts on it?
I think the only response you'll get from the county will be is if they collect it, the time that they take to collect it, it will end up costing you a lot more to have the work done, but that's obviously a decision
Yeah.
they can make.
Then we could write and tell them to save the money on issuing pamphlets to say how wonderful it is.
So what would you like to do?
Leave it.
Pass.
So Michael's wildflowers.
Yeah.
Can will you excuse me? I've got no lights on my bike.
Yes, you're excused. We'll see you in July, Peter.
And all have a nice summer.
Thank you very much.
So we'll see you on 27th of July, Peter.
Yeah, okay.
Could I just talk about the wildfire thing, which has come in, because I can give you a brief. And actually quite briefly, it's work in progress as far as the churchyard is concerned. Jed Keel, who is now leading the Friends of St Michael, has taken it up, has come to the council to say that they want to change the regime of the maintenance of the churchyard, and he wants to plant wildflowers in 2 separate patches. If you can visualise the churchyard right at the back of the church, up by the trees, there is an area which is strimmed by Jason, but he strims and does not clear up. What he wants to do is to put wildflower in that area. And the other area he was considering putting flowers is when you look at the churchyard and steps to the right where a lot of primroses are, he wants to make that into a wildflower area. I know there are a number of comments which have come back from within the church and from outside that if it's not maintained properly it will look a mess. And I reminded Jed that when the church approached us about 8 or 9 months ago for more money for the extension of the churchyard, we put a proviso on it that we would not actually give them more money unless they tidied up the churchyard, and the beds and the flower beds, frankly, are a mess. There's been an argument as to how the beds are maintained. Sue Boss was in charge of it. Sue Boss can't cope with it now. And I think the thing is now going to be taken over by Jed to manage the beds. And I said that one of the things that we wanted was to make quite certain that the flower beds are kept properly, the flower beds along the line of the the wall by the churchyard to the right, that needs to be done properly, and we're rather doubtful about the wildflowers because it could become a mess. And he said, well, that is a matter of discussion. So what is now going to happen? There is next week a meeting of the Friends. They want to progress it, they want to talk about it, and I have said, well, when they come to some decisions, they want to put it in writing, what they want to do, send it to us so that we consider it, and if they want to do something in the churchyard, my suggestion would be that when they do it, they have a meeting and one person from this meeting goes to approve what they do. And he said, yes, that is fine. So it's a perfectly satisfactory conversation, but they want to get a grip of it, and it looks as though Jed Keel is going to do it.
So the conclusion is that we leave.
Wait for the moment,
until,
but I mean, the thing he wants to do, which is something I suggested to the church over a year ago, and Simon never took it up, was that in the same way that the church has volunteers for the cleaning of brass, volunteers for the cleaning of the church, there are plenty of people in this village, and Jed agreed with me that there are plenty of people in this village who would actually volunteer to maintain the churchyard should they be got together in a group and have a pattern of work through the season. And what they want to do is, when he was talking about the patch up at the back, where it's trimmed but not cleared up by Jason, that would be part and parcel of the churchyard, the church team to do it. But there is an argument amongst themselves as to who's running the bloody churchyard. And I don't want...
Okay. So at the moment, sorry, Bob, yeah.
The thing is, I think in terms of, obviously, we make a contribution to maintain the churchyard primarily because we want it to look tidy.
Aesthetic.
As a nice feature of the village. I mean, wildflowers are a very nice thing to do. And as I mentioned, I think before, we at Sedgemoor, on a number of the play areas, we do have areas set aside for wildflowers. The problem with them is you have to let them flower, you then have to let them seed, and that does mean that you end up with what looks like a hayfield at various points of the year. I think the idea of doing it in the church is a nice idea. It's at the back of the churchyard, great. If you're going to stick it right on the front of the churchyard, on the edge of the road, it isn't going to look great, and then we're going to get the complaints from the village saying, why aren't you keeping the churchyard tidy for what we're paying for it? So, in a way, I mean, I wouldn't want to stop them doing it, but it would make life a lot easier for everybody if they did it at the back of the churchyard and maybe didn't do the front.
I quite agree with you, and I made that absolutely plain to Jed. And Jed took it on board. He, of course, is a naturalist, he's dead keen on wildflowers, but he frets and fusses about things, and I think and I've said it could be a mess. So we can have our. I've made it clear that we can, as a council, have our input, and we wait and see what they say.
Okay, thank you. Right, matters of report. Anything you want to add?
I just wanted to ask. Did you ask the lady gardeners what were they going to do about the flower beds? Were they maintaining that for the year?
Yes, that's the one.
That's what they're
Oh
going
yes,
to do.
they volunteered to maintain the
Flatbed.
the flower bed for the year. Yes, and I think they intend to rotate the flowers as well.
Thank you.
And I think it may well be that time will come when they rotate the flowers, and we will have to make a contribution towards flowers in the future. Whatever, but we'll do it because it was the first tranche which was booked.
I'm afraid I've got two things. Firstly, somebody approached me who's got young children in the village, and they couldn't get them in the local school because the headmaster has extended his catchment area. Secondly, Nuss Farm, the response by the fire brigade was quite
Just
strong.
sorry, before you go on to that one.
We had 8 fire engines.
So we need,
fire
yeah, we need. So is that an item for next time? Do you think?
No.
The school thing, or it's just a matter of
just making a comment.
Just to make a comment. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a parish council, I don't think we have any control over catchment areas, unfortunately. But it seems strange that if they're in the village, they have not got a right to a primary school.
Sure.
That seems wrong.
Yeah. Nuss Farm, the fire the other day. With the large attendance by the fire brigade, does that indicate that they consider it an unsafe area in the centre of the village?
I would have thought that he must have had some form of permissions, and somebody, say from the Environment Agency, would have done an assessment to see what the fire risks are. If they haven't, then somebody is wanting. I'm looking at Bob to say, I'm talking
really
about
surprised
rubbish.
if it was reported that there was a fire at a scrapyard, but the fact it was a scrapyard, that's why they sent out all the tenders, because they thought there might be stuff on there.
Settling
that
and all,
could go.
and all that sort of thing, yeah. I mean, let's be honest, it's an environmental nightmare, it's an environmental mess, and you know, as a newbie, I can't understand how it ever got to the state it is without somebody doing something about it.
Two people told the fireman, why can't you leave it for a couple of hours?
And also the drop curbs.
Would you like some paraffin in your house? Yes.
He's not using drop curbs on entrances there, which...
We've already mentioned that.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you. Just in answer to your question, anyway, I won't go into the long history, but the very short answer of how it got to where it was is because sometimes, in a way, if we don't pick up items early, and sometimes you think, oh, I won't report something because it seems fairly trivial. The fact was on that site, he was trading from that site in the 1970s. It was only in the 1990s that the parish council actually picked it up and took it to Sedgemoor and said, we'd like you to look at this. And by that stage, he got deemed permission because it had been going on for far too long. Which is why, if there are issues that come up that we need to report, you report them early, because if the clock goes on for too long, you can report it and you've missed the deadline, so you're stuck. And so in effect, he's in a position there where he has no need for a planning permission because he's been operating there for too long. And that's one of the disincentives for him having to move. Because if he were to move, he'd need to apply for permission to do all the things that he's never applied for permission to do on that site. He still gets visits from things like the EA and about pollution. That's something that is ongoing, but in terms of planning, that's why they can't step in.
as parish council, have we got any right to ask whoever, presumably the fire brigade or somebody will investigate the occurrence and the cause, have we got right of seeing that report?
I wouldn't have thought we had right, but there's nothing stopping us asking.
No, quite.
Because I'm thinking if there was evidence that they were doing something which you say is in the middle of the village, blah, 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 and it could be a hazard in the future, then I know it's retrospective, but surely.
The story on the grapevine is that he got hay and straw stored in there.
Probably doing this
And
spot world.
20 odd years ago, before I came on this council, I went to complain about it, and they couldn't do anything about it. I've also sent photographs to Sedgemoor, showing all the junk, even in the field. I've shown photographs of him coming out of that unauthorised entrance. They don't want to know. As Bob said, the attitude is, well, he's always been doing this. There's nothing we can do.
But we wouldn't be allowed to drive up and down a pavement without a curb, done properly. We'd be in terrible trouble if we did that. So how can it, even if he's done it for years, you can still stop him surely doing that.
The difficulty is there are certain things, once you've established a use, you can't take it away.
Does anybody sort of say to anybody like the Rivers Authority, has anybody checked any oil contamination in the ring?
I think that happened a few years ago, didn't it? Environmental people came along.
Because at one time they had to move the muck heap, didn't they, which used to be right at the front of the site, and that was moved because it was causing a problem for people. But it is a site that does get looked at, but there are only certain things they can...
Anything else?
No.
Cynthia?
No.
Colin?
Could you put the goal area on the agenda for the 27th, please? Alternatively, if we subsequently make our decision which one we go for, could we have, could we email everybody just to say, look, we've now bottomed it out and this is our preferred supplier? Can we agree it like that, or would you prefer that we do it at the meeting on the 27th? I won't be here, so mine will do it.
I may be wrong, didn't we give
I thought we
authorisation?
had
We can say yeah, go. Okay.
We authorised it, didn't we?
Okay.
You have
So-
authority to spend up to £10,000,
Okay.
either option 1 or option 2.
Okay, so we can just tell Owen, please place an order with us.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
you've got that.
Sorry, I thought there was another.
John?
I thought that when we do install the mother, and it's quite expensive, that we should put something in the BKM to show the village that we've actually spent a considerable amount of money on the project.
Burnham News.
But I think it's a good thing that we know what we're doing.
Thank you. It's not bad. 10:15. Getting better.
Not 7 minutes off the time.
Could be slightly for
Well, at least you know about 600.
Oh, I don't have a clue.
You don't want to know. Yeah.
Deal.
Sorry? Not that I'm interested.
Really
She had